Hi, this is Drew Erickson back again talking about money, not math, because I believe most people love money without realizing how often it doesn't work the same way as math. And because I love our country, but I believe our government is terrible at managing money and should not control our financial future. So my goal is to bring you value that will help you plan for your financial future and your retirement income. All right, so today I am reviewing an article on motleyfool.com or just fool.com. And it's one of those interesting articles where, like, conceptually the points that are made are good, but a couple of the points within the article, like the specifics around them, I completely disagree with. All right, so on one end, hopefully the questions or the comments or the points made in this article that this person makes are helpful, but on the other end, hopefully the explanations I make as to why or how their specifics don't make sense bring you value. All right, so hopefully I laid that out clearly, but I guess we'll see how it goes. So like I said, this is on motleyfool.com, and it's written by Mari Backman. The title is 5 Common but Avoidable Retirement Mistakes, and I'm going to add a 6th one at the end about listening to incorrect or inaccurate information. All right, so number 1, claiming Social Security at the wrong time. Your Social Security benefits are calculated based on how much you earned during your 35 highest paid years in the workforce, and you can claim that monthly benefit in full once you reach full retirement age. That age is either 66, 67, or somewhere in between, depending on your year of birth. However, you're allowed to claim Social Security before reaching full retirement age, and doing so might seem like a good idea, since it means getting your hands on your money sooner. But for each month you opt to collect Social Security before reaching full retirement age, your monthly benefit gets reduced up to a maximum of 30%. Want to avoid a hit on benefits? Commit your full retirement age to memory and wait until you reach it to file for Social Security. It's that simple. All right, so that's number 1 in their opinion. The 6th one I'm adding is listening to inaccurate or cookie cutter or just rule of thumb information for your own personal planning. All right, so though this could be accurate, I'm going to basically every point they make, I'm going to, not everyone, but almost every point they make, I'm going to add in my caveat of make sure you do personal planning, not just listen to rules of thumb, because in this example, they're right. Waiting till age 67 will create more benefits on an annual basis, but every situation is different. There are situations where it does make sense to claim earlier or later than 67 or your full retirement age. So make sure that you are taking into account your personal situation, talking to someone you trust to build a financial retirement income plan that works for you. All right. Number 2. All right. So number 2, they say, is underfunding your IRA or 401k. All right. So there is no magic retirement savings number that guarantees financial security as a senior. But as a general rule, you should expect to need about 10 times your ending salary in savings by the time your career wraps up. That way, you're more likely to save enough money to pay your expenses without worry. All right, so right off the bat, I completely disagree with this point. All right, so what the title should say is underfunding your retirement plan, because IRAs and 401ks are not the only options when it comes to building your wealth accumulation, or when it comes to accumulating your wealth and maximizing your retirement income. All right, they aren't the only options. Just because they're the most common doesn't mean they're the only ones. All right, so that's a small point. The big point here that I completely disagree with is the statement, but as a general rule. Right when you hear the word general, it no longer applies to you because you're not general. You are a person, you have your own personal goals, and you have your own personal background and your own personal situation. We are not all collectively the same. We do not all collectively have the same retirements. So I do not like general rules of thumb. But within that, they say you should expect to need about 10 times your ending salary in savings by the time your career wraps up. Let's dive into that a little bit. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to dive into what that would look like, if you followed that rule. All right, so I apologize if my computer lags behind a little bit here. I will do my best to make it all as clear as I possibly can. All right, so let's look at this. If 10 times income rule debunked, if you made $100,000 the last year you worked, or if you want to say you're married and collectively you made $100,000, if you multiply that by 10, that says, according to this person, you only need $1 million of retirement assets. Now I know, some people watching this video might think $1 million is a lot. But what we have to keep in mind are the safe withdrawal rules when it comes to taking money out of market-driven investments. So 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, that kind of stuff is invested in the stock market, mutual funds, things like that. So there's what's called safe withdrawal rates. You can read up on guys named Wade Pfau and other economists that talk about these things. Historically, the 4% rule has been the general rule of thumb that many have used. As of late, a lot of people like Wade Pfau and other very experienced economists are saying it's closer to 3% because of market fluctuations. All right, so let's look at this. If you have $1 million of retirement assets and you use this 3% safe withdrawal rule on million assets, you're only going to have $30,000 per year of retirement income. Do you want to drop your income from $100,000 the last year you worked to $30,000 the first year you retire? Or let's say you go back to the old rule of thumb. Using 4%, you will have $40,000 per year of retirement income, but now you're going to have a higher chance of running out of money before you run out of breath. Are you willing to drop from 100,000 to 40,000? All right, so let's go up to 5%. Using 5%, that'll get you $50,000. Okay, so let's use another rule of thumb to debunk this 10 times rule. I hear it all the time, and it's another rule that bothers me. People say, I won't have as expensive of a lifestyle in retirement as I did while I was working, so I'm only going to need about 80% of my income in retirement that I had while I was working. Where they come up with these numbers, I have no idea, and if you want to prove me wrong, please reach out and let me know. But let's just use these numbers. If you use the old 80% of your pre-retirement income myth, that would still require an 8% per year withdrawals to get $80,000 per year of retirement income. Keep in mind this doesn't include Social Security, but also keep in mind that Social Security income is going to be heavily taxed if you have this much taxable income. All right, so how much you actually get to keep is, well, yet to be determined, and it takes a personal financial plan, not just general rules of thumb to determine it. Well, let's just say you're going to go with $80,000 from your account. Well, if we pull up the nest egg calculator from Vanguard.com, let's just say you're going to live 20 years in retirement, because for me personally, my full retirement age is 67, and for the average male my age, the life expectancy is 87, so that's 20 years in retirement. If I have $1 million and I'm pulling $80,000 per year at an 8% withdrawal rate, I'm going to have a 37% chance of not running out of money before I run out of breath. So flipping the math, that means I have a 63% chance of running out of money before I run out of breath. Are you comfortable with the 63% chance of running out of money? I know I'm not. All right, so let's say, okay, your Social Security is going to cover some of that. Let's drop this down to just 50,000 at the 5% rule. For 20 years, let's see if my computer can work. Now we have a 93% chance. Great, good for us. At 5%, $50,000. Are you willing to cut your income in half? Oh, what if I live longer than age 87 because medical advancements are going up? But what if I live 25 years in retirement? Pausing, dramatic effect. Now I only have an 83% chance of making sure my money doesn't run out. So the point I'm making is, how is this 10 times rule applicable at all to you? I mean, really, unless you're only planning on living 20 years in retirement, you're okay with cutting your income in half, so you're only going to take 5% or less of your wealth. How is it going to work, right? So my whole point is, I'm not trying to bash on this person. I'm really just trying to bash on rules of thumb when it comes to your financial planning. I think everyone's financial planning should be based off them personally, not using these random rules. All right, so continuing on, and just as this one rule, I completely disagree with it. So continuing on, they say, oh, you can still see my screen, which is not necessary. I'll pop back in here, so it's okay if you want to follow along on my screen. But I know the writing's small, so don't worry about it. They say, want to avoid a shortfall during retirement? Start funding your 401k or IRA from a young age. If you contribute $400 a month to a retirement plan starting at age 27, and you retire at age 67, you'll wind up with $958,000, assuming your portfolio generates an average annual 7% return during that time, which he or she says is doable with a stock-heavy portfolio. All right, let's jump back into what I've drawn out here. The problem they just stated there is one, they're saying, okay, so let me say something I agree with. Start saving as early and often as you can, because the rules of compounding and the power of compounding is the longer you save, the more it grows and the faster it grows in the back end. As I've shown many times in previous videos, the catch-up thing, trying to catch up when it comes to your savings does not work well. If you want more specifics, reach out and let me know and we'll get into it. But the biggest problem I have, one of the biggest things that bother me about the investment industry that I live in, is using historical averages to project future actual rates of return. All right, so my point is the difference between average and actual. Average rate of return, as I'll use my numbers to explain, takes, if you have up and down over time, they take the average historically, and that's fine. But you can't take historical averages to project future consistent returns because they're completely different. All right, so here's my example. The first one's pretty extreme. The second one's a little bit more realistic. If in year one, your $100,000 gets 100% rate of return, you now have $200,000. If in year two, your $200,000 gets a negative 50% rate of return, you now are back to $100,000. If in year three, your $100,000 gets another 100% rate of return, so this market's extremely volatile, you're back to $200,000. If in year four, your $200,000 gets a negative 50% rate of return, you're back to $100,000. Your average rate of return during that time, doing the math, is 25%. So your investment advisor could sit down and say, congratulations, I got you 25% average rate of return over the last 4 years. And then you look at your statement, you go, I started with the 100, I ended with the 100, my actual rate of return is 0. Plus the fact that I wrote minus here, but plus during that time, you're gonna be paying fees, so you actually lost money. All right, so can you see how the average versus actual is different? If your actual rate of return during this time, so consistently each year was 25%, I wanna get that clear. Average fluctuates, and we take out the average for over those years. Actual, consistent rate of return going forward, like this person tried to use in their projection, assumes you have the same return each year. All right, so there's a very big difference there. If the actual rate of return each year was 25%, the account value would be $244,140. Quite the dramatic change from 100,000. Don't you agree? All right, and again, I'll use another example. And if you want specifics using the S&P 500 historically or anything else, reach out. I'll show you specifics. But for this example, I just want to use something simple. Example 2, year 1, $100,000, get 20%. Year 2 gets $120,000 at the end of the year. Year 2, 120,000. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be 120,000. Oh, okay. I botched my own numbers here, so you guys can watch me make mistakes live here. So year 2, 120,000. This is why preparation sometimes still fails us. 120,000 times 1.2 for 20% gets us $144,000 at the end of the year. 144, I guess we're all human, right? We all make mistakes. I'll accept mine here. $144,000 getting a negative 20% of rate of return in year 3 times 0.8 gets us down to 115,000. So my numbers on the right are apparently right. Numbers on the left, not so much, if you are watching and not listening. So beginning of year 4, we now have $115,200 getting 20% rate of return, gets us to $138,240. $138,240 getting another 20% rate of return gets us up to $165,888. During those 5 years, your investment advisor could look back, do the math, and say, congratulations, I got you a 12% average rate of return each year. That's your average. However, if you actually do the math and use a calculator to even that out, the actual rate of return each year is 10.6%. All right, so that's 1.4% difference, not including the fees you will have to pay, which we all know comes out of your account, right? So it's going to be even lower than that, but let's just leave fees out of it for now. If the actual rate of return each year was actually 12%, the account value would be $176,234, not $166,000. All right, So hopefully you followed along with that. I apologize for the mix-up on my typing out here, but the whole point is there's a very large difference between average versus actual rates of return, and anytime you take historical averages, it is not fair to take that average and assume you're going to get the exact same number every year going forward, because average rate of return and actual rate of return are completely different things. And in this example, which I'll come back to, they use an actual rate of return of 7% each year, which is up to you if you think that's realistic. But if they're basing it off historical averages, it's unfair to the reader. All right, so I'm no longer sharing my screen, and I will finish off the story. Number 3, not knowing what healthcare will cost you. You may be used to certain healthcare bills while you're a member of the workforce. But once you retire, you may be shocked to see your medical expenses climb substantially, especially when you account for Medicare premiums, deductibles, copays, and non-coverage services. In fact, cost projection software provider HealthView Services estimates that the average 65-year-old couple today will spend a whopping $387,644 on healthcare throughout retirement. Want to avoid getting caught off guard? Read up on Medicare, but also set aside extra funds to cover your future healthcare costs. All right, so keep in mind that they said you're only going to need 10 times your income. So if you in retirement, so if you have $100,000 as your last year's income, according to them, you only need $1 million saved up, but also according to them, almost 88,000 of that million is going to go towards healthcare. Just to make sure we follow along here. Number 4, not planning for long-term care. An estimated 70% of seniors age 65 and over will require long-term care in their lifetime, and the costs involved could be astronomical. In fact, here's what those costs look like today on average. I'm going to round these numbers. About $49,000 a year for an assisted living facility, about $53,000 a year for home health aid, about $90,000 a year for shared nursing home room, and about $102,000 a year for a private room. Want to avoid struggling financially if you need long-term care arises? Buy long-term care insurance. If you apply in your 50s, you're more likely to get approved and at a competitive rate, making your premiums more affordable. All right, so they're definitely right here. I completely agree with everything they just said, but keep in mind, they say apply in your 50s. I would argue the earlier you apply, whether it's in your 40s, your 30s, or your 20s, it's always going to be cheaper the younger you are and easier to get approved the younger you apply. All right, so keep in mind if you want to protect your assets and without having to lose them when paying for assisted living and things like that, long-term care insurance is the way to go. Again, more details are needed to really hash that out, but let me know if you have questions. Number 5, forgetting about taxes. Many people assume that seniors get a tax break on most or all of their income. The reality is that unless you house your savings in tax or after-tax accounts like Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks or reverse mortgages or overfunded life insurance contracts or other ways that are after tax, so they're tax-free in retirement, your retirement plan withdrawals will be considered taxable income. The same holds true for pension income, most of the time, income from a part-time job, bank account interest, and investment gains on traditional 401ks, 403bs, I apologize for the alarm, 401ks, 403bs, brokerage accounts, and so forth. Therefore, unless Social Security is your only source of retirement income, there's a good chance some or most of your benefits will be taxed as well. For example, if you are single and you have over $34,000 per year of taxable income, up to 85% of your Social Security will be taxed again at your highest marginal rate. If you are married, I believe the number is $44,000 or $45,000 per year. If you have over that taxable income, up to 85% of your Social Security will be taxed again at your highest marginal rate. Plus, guess what? Your Medicare costs are also determined off your taxable income. So be very aware of where you put your money today will affect your income in the future. Want to avoid the headache? Understand your IRS liability and talk to someone you trust about where you're putting your money today and how it's going to affect your future tax liability. All right, so number 1, according to this article, claiming Social Security at the wrong time. Number 2, underfunding your retirement plan. Number 3, not knowing what health care will cost you. Number 4, not planning for long-term care. Number 5, forgetting about taxes. And number 6, I'm adding listening to rules of thumb that don't apply to you personally and basing your planning off of other people's opinions or situations, because at the end of the day, your financial plan is yours alone. All right, so I hope today's conversation was helpful for you. Thanks for hanging out for, I guess, however long this conversation took. Hopefully it brought you value. That's always my goal. I appreciate you taking the time. Please let me know what you thought. Share with a friend, and overall, I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.